Thanks. Thanks, Susan. And I'm so glad to see so many shining faces this morning. I am coming to you from the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania, and it has been my honor to be part of TICFA now for 2 years. The reason we decided to do this particular program is that many of our volunteers don't understand what chaplaincy means. If we use the idea of spiritual care, they still sometimes need to understand what's behind that. So what I found in my life of 25 years as a chaplain is if I use the term, people think of Father Mulcahy from MASH, or they may think that I'm a priest or that I'm a rabbi. So I have to say it has been very difficult when we visit patients in the hospital to walk in and say, I'm from pastoral care. Plus, Jewish patients hear the word pastoral and they think it's Christian. So at least in our part of the United States, departments have been starting to call themselves spiritual care. And I have to say, sometimes when I walk in, if I say chaplain, they think that I'm the Grim Reaper and that I am there to give them really bad news. So sometimes what I've been doing is I will just go in and say, hi, I'm Leslie. I just came here to see how you're doing. Let them talk a little bit and then go into what spiritual care is. Some of the patients believe in God. Some of them just want to talk about their families. A lot of Jewish patients want to do Jewish geography, or they want to talk about their synagogue. And whatever area they'd like to start with, that's where we start to focus, just like therapists. So we minister to people of all traditions, even those who are agnostic or atheists. And 2 of my senior staff identified as atheists. And one of them is now running the entire corporate department of New York Presbyterian. So people think, oh, you have to be religious to have this job. And it's really not true. The concept is that everyone has a spiritual core, something that brings them meaning, hope, connection, whether they want to talk about their dog or they want to talk about their career. I had someone who always wanted to know what kind of work someone did. It was important. So we are not therapists like most of you I see on here, but we are trained in clinical psychology. It's sort of the integration of psychology and theology. We're required to have at least 4 units of clinical pastoral education to be board certified. And that's 400 hours a piece. And it's really hard. I'm sure all of you have had the kind of situation where you have to be in group settings and you have to hold up a mirror to everyone in your group and talk about yourselves and figure out what you can say to your colleagues. And it's interesting, but we are also required to have seminary training. So I have gone to 2 rabbinic establishments, and some people complete a certain number of units, and then they're ready to go to move into whichever sort of field they'd like. We have people on our team who are prison chaplains, like Susan. Susan also did prison chaplaincy. We have Hannah Fields, who is a military chaplain and advisor to the Department of Defense. We have lay chaplains like myself and some of the people I'm seeing online. And I have somebody who actually just started at Rikers, one of our volunteers who's been here for about a year. So you can see it runs the gamut. Some people also have extensive training in different types of hospital settings, like me. So one of the misconceptions is that we come in and we're going to immediately pray with the patient or the client. And we have to sort of get behind that a little bit and explain what we're doing there, and that we just came to see how they are and check on what types of things they might want to talk about. So you can see it's still like therapy. And I used to do a session on the top 10 things that patients say. I was going to ask you all if you have something that you always hear. when you go to see a client? Like one thing that sort of stands out. Anybody?
I suppose we could kickstart with confidentiality.
Yes, that is such a good thing to say, Susan. And we make that clear that everything they say to us is, and I appreciate that. I had many, many people who would start off by saying, I don't want to complain, but, and so I would say to them, I love complaining. And then they would open up and tell me everything. And as they're telling everything, when we're in training, we have to do verbatims, living human documents, which I think many of you have to do as well. And that it can be really hard because you're trying to codify what the patient said, and then you have to write how you're feeling about what's happening. So it's pretty complicated, but I did love it, and I didn't care that I had to put in very long hours and suffer through the interpersonal relations seminars. The other thing I heard a lot was, it is what it is. Have you heard that from people? Like, but what does that mean? So you get to go behind what they're saying and figure out, are they saying there's nothing I can do about it? Or it's some other type of construct that they can't get behind. What we wanted to talk about today is the tachlis of how our program works here. We have the helpline, which I'm sure you're all aware of. And what'll happen is we will get a phone call in, and then Susan and or I will help make an assessment as to what type of chaplain they might want. They might want a male rabbi to talk about halacha. They may want a woman. They may want somebody who is a certified chaplain. And I'm looking at everybody on the screen today, and I know some of you, but it really is, it's a privilege to know the people who are working on our team so that we can say, well, Gail is maybe up for this particular person, or Hannah is in Israel, which she's going to talk about with us soon. And Hannah Fruman also. Everybody who's on our helpline here is dedicated, and everybody has made such a great spiritual assessment for us. I've never had anybody come to us and say, I don't know how I got here, because it's usually through the helpline. So somebody will get a call. They're doing this work, even if they're not chaplains, and they hear something, and it doesn't have to just be about God. It could be some other type of situation. And then we do an assessment of the needs, and we assign somebody. And I can't tell you why this is happening, but lately we're getting mostly calls for rabbis, male rabbis, most often Orthodox rabbis. So when we first started, we thought maybe people wouldn't want to request that because they have their own personal rabbi. But it turns out that they really do appreciate our work. And right now, as Susan said, we have about 20 people. We have rabbis and chaplains who are Reform, Orthodox, Conservative, and one who would maybe identify as Reconstructionist. Okay. Any questions so far? Anything at all? Okay, good. We also have a dedicated line with Cloud Phone with the number 204. We have different codes that we use. And at the same time, as I said, most of our calls are coming in through the helpline, but every once in a while, I will get a phone call from the 204 line, and then we try and find just the right person. Sometimes I'll write out a general note to all the chaplains to see if someone can take it. And sometimes I know just exactly who they may want to talk to. Right now, we have some people who are frequent callers, and we have an idea about what they're looking for. So, okay. So chaplaincy is based on the medical model. Do we have a doctor? I think, Michael, your PhD. Do we have any medical doctors on the line? Any medical doctors?
Not here at the moment, but I don't think we actually do.
Okay. Chaplaincy is based on the medical model. of interns and residents and fellows. And then, as I said, they can go through intensive training and become board certified. So one of the recent calls we got was from a woman who wanted to learn about Kabbalah. So after giving her a couple of ideas and sending her copies of literature, I thought that would be good. We sent her to one of our rabbis who knows a lot about it. So I'll write on the general chaplaincy line and say, does anybody want to take this call? Are you familiar with Kabbalah? And this past week, I got a call from an Iranian man who had just found out that he had Sephardic genes and he wanted to convert. So, I spent a little time with them, and then I might find somebody who's more an expert for that. But it's such a privilege. And before I hand over to Hannah, I just wondered if there are any other questions or comments.
The chaplaincy line is a very unique thing here in Israel. I haven't seen it done by any other organization in the way that we are doing it. However, in Befrienders Worldwide, which Tikva is a member of, they were asking me at one of the meetings a few months ago, they were talking about having a chaplaincy division. And one of the branches in just India had just added a branch to their of chaplaincy. And I said, well, we've been doing that for a long time now. They were so impressed that chaplaincy was attached to a support line because it can give such a different dynamic to the callers. And I think this is something maybe Hannah I hope will touch upon when she talks. Hannah is one of our chaplains, and so is Gail Foreman, who is down here. Wave, Gail. Both of them are on our team, very, very important members of our team. So Hannah's going to speak a little bit now about chaplaincy from her view.
Okay. Chaplaincy in Israel is, well, I sound like I'm an American, and I am an American to a large extent. I did my chaplaincy training in Israel, and then I went and did a course in America to find out what is chaplaincy in America and is there any difference between it there and here. And I also did a course in the Philippines online. It turns out that spiritual health care is something that's very transferable. It's very international. It's very all people. And if a person studied all faith chaplaincy, you basically have the basis to work with anybody anywhere in the world. The people who might look for chaplains are few and far between in Israel. The type of chaplaincy that's been offered, and it's not just Tikva that's offering it, there's another organization that offers it as part of their basket of what they can offer the people who come for help, but it's not an organization that has a hotline. So in that regard, Tikva is unique, and the people that might ask for a chaplain or might be able to use a chaplain are sometimes people who don't want to do therapy. They don't know exactly what therapy is, or they've been to therapy and it wasn't successful. They want to be taken seriously, and they want to talk about their worldview and how they fit into the world. And chaplaincy is the way that we practice chaplaincy is as chaplains. There's this spiritual component that psychology doesn't touch on, that the medical profession doesn't touch on, that most therapies don't go into, and it's not an unquantifiable element of somebody's existence. So to be a clinician and see what the person is struggling with is what we do. I did more training as a chaplain in Emory University, where there's something called spiritual health care. And so I'm a spiritual health care clinician. What does that mean? It means that I can work in a clinical setting with people who are from other walks of life, who are doctors and social workers and psychologists. And it turns out that when do they call for the chaplain? When do they call for the spiritual health care? Is when they don't know what to do with the person. They know that the person is upset. They know that the person is not reactive to the kinds of therapies that they can offer, and they are what one might call in Greek chaser onim. It's like they've lost it. The clinicians in these settings have other people that they're dealing with, and they can't dedicate their time to doing the kind of compassionate care that nurses are trained in and social workers are trained in. Everybody's trained in this kind of compassionate care, but they don't have time in their day to think about how am I going to approach this person with that. So Tikva being able to do that, because we can actually offer anything that Susan is ready to offer. We can offer that level of compassionate listening that the person, that might be the only thing the person wants and needs. They don't need a diagnostic. It's not diagnostic. It's assurances. It's seeing the person as they are in that moment as they come in during the interchange, and knowing that the next time you're going to see that person, they're going to have a totally different situation. You're meeting a new person because that person has done whatever changes they've done between the day you meet them and the next day after when you meet them. And if you have a series of 3 or 4 meetings with this person, you might not be meeting the same person every day in a very real way, because the way they present on one day with the worries that they're carrying on their shoulders that day is going to be different than what they show the next day. People might not know to ask for chaplains. They
Mhm.
might not understand that there's a possibility of talking with somebody that has been specially trained to listen in the way that we've been trained to listen. Therapists, I've gotten the impression that a lot of therapists like to help people solve their problems. They want to see a resolution. They want to see the person getting back on whatever track that they were on. And in certain ways, chaplains are more concerned with the person being able to hold themselves in a calm manner, no matter where they are, no matter how they're finding themselves in the moment. That's chaplaincy the way I see it. Um, I think that we can do a very good program. We can do very good work with people. Soldiers, especially right now, are in great need of chaplains. The Army says that they have chaplains. When the Israeli Army has chaplains, it's mostly having to do with halakha of war, halakha of being in the field, and it's not necessarily related um, to the spiritual curiosity and quests, and in the face of what these people are seeing right now.
Mhm.
So in that regard, I think that we have a possibility of seeing people in different ways. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what the American Army situation is with the kind of chaplains that they have there, but here that's the way it works. Also, many hospitals here, there's no real the chaplaincy isn't the way it is in America, where chaplains are assigned roles in specific units. There's a lot of religious chaplaincy going on. Um, there's a lot of room for growth here.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, I know Gail's not scheduled to talk, but is there anything you would like to add from your perspective? Um, I know that was really
So I don't have formal chaplaincy training like Hannah does. Um, Somehow Leslie recruited me. I My training is as a licensed clinical social worker. I went to rabbinical school in the conservative movement for a year and dropped out because I met my husband 3 weeks after I got there. And I always should have been a chazan, which I wound up getting certified to do in 2021. And so Leslie just said, "Oh, I think you'd be a great chaplain." So I'm sort of doing chaplaincy a bit by the seat of my pants with a certain amount of knowledge of, you know, psychotherapy. I was licensed back in 1986, so I've been at this for a while. So I combine sort of lots of experience as a psychotherapist and a social worker with a decent amount of knowledge of halakha and liturgy and, knowing where to get the right source. And and that's how I got into this, and I really enjoyed doing it. And Hannah, one of the things that came to mind as you were talking is that I think one of the things that a lot of people who seek out chaplains are dealing with is the phenomenon of moral injury
Mm-hmm.
and coping with that, because the field of psychology has only very recently come to recognize that as something that people really, really struggle with. And I imagine that that's what some of our lone soldiers, Suzanne, you can probably relate to this, but some of our lone soldiers may be dealing with that. I think some of all the anti-Semitism stuff that we are just seeing so rampant all over the place kind of touches on people's sense of moral injury, whether they think we're doing it or someone else is doing it. But I think that's where some of my psychotherapy stuff comes in and some of my chaplaincy stuff comes in when I do a chaplaincy call for Tikva. And I'm being vague and all over the map. And if somebody wants to jump in and ask questions, feel free. But that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Hannah, and thank you, Gail. I think as a round robin, I fit in there between Gail and Hannah as well, because my introduction into chaplaincy was through the United Synagogues in England. And I was approached by the head of the chaplaincy division there. They'd heard my name bandied around by a few of the Rabbonim and felt that I would make a good prison chaplain. And that's how I ended up serving for Her Majesty's prisons in those days. And interestingly, religion very rarely came into my practice as a chaplain. It was the spiritual side of things, that connection of just being able to hold space and then feeling safe because I was in a non-judgmental role. I was a chaplain, I was no threat, even though I was working with loads and loads of terrorists and murderers and da-da-da-da. They didn't feel threatened by my presence. On the contrary, it was the only population I've ever calmed down, but it was a calming atmosphere. And I think that's the essence of what chaplaincy is. The same when I was a hospital chaplain for a short period of time. Yes, the religion came more into that because I was working solely with Jewish patients, but that wasn't what they were talking about. And I think that's something that there's a difference between therapy and kind of chaplaincy. It's holding them in a different sort of a way to doing therapy with them, which I think is magical. And that's why I wanted to introduce this into the support line and expand this service into different areas of how we can do that as well. We need to get together and have a meeting. So I hope that's informed you a little bit about our chaplaincy department, which is the newest addition to Tikva's services. The next one that I'd like to introduce you to, and I think most of you already know Mike. Mike's been with us a long time. Mike is the head of our Lone Soldier division. He works tirelessly with lone soldiers, like 24/7 working with soldiers. Soldiers in the field and all sorts of different issues that he handles. So Mike, just give an introduction into what the Lone Soldier Program means. Thank you.
Okay, with pleasure. I'll give you 2 seconds of my background so you know who I am. I also started in my ventures in Israel as a lone soldier myself. I fought in the First Lebanon War, then came back and was involved in the Second Lebanon War, and then did about 20 years of reserve duty in Gaza and around the country. When we talk about lone soldiers, I want to break it into today's groups very simply. Lone soldiers are divided into 2 groups. There are lone soldiers that are coming to Israel from outside of Israel, and there are lone soldiers who are Israeli born and grew up in Israel. 48% of them are Israeli lone soldiers, which means they come from either broken families, families that can't afford, financially can't afford them, or as more commonly has become, religious young people, men and women, who decided that they wanted to go to the army and their parents literally kicked them out of the house. The rest of the lone soldiers are people that come from around the world for different reasons. The largest group comes from Russian speaking countries. Then it's North America, meaning the United States, Canada. Then it breaks down into smaller countries. Now, I'll start by saying like this. I start with soldiers reach out to me by virtue of them knowing through the years who I am, because they have a brother, a sister, cousin, a friend, or somebody that I have in one time or another help them. So they just pass my name on and it doesn't stop. Because we are doing what we're doing now, we're also involved with the parents of lone soldiers. Now, in Israel, we have many families that have made Aliyah, and although their children are here with them, they were not exposed to an army background, not an Israeli army background. So their parents don't know how to help prepare them for the army, and therefore the children know even less how to prepare themselves for the army. So a typical parent issue that I will deal with can be anything from a parent calling me saying, Mike, listen, my son said to me that he wants to be a combat soldier. I don't want my son to be a combat soldier. I don't want to see my son in a combat unit.
Mhm.
Or we have families where they are more religious and they're more concerned about if they're going to be in a combat unit or in a non-combat unit, they should be more exposed if they are males to male environment or female environment. So that also becomes a very big issue. So the parents ignite the fire, because from within Israel, they don't know how to prepare their children for the army, because making Aliyah, if some of you have made Aliyah and have your children here, know that learning a language and a culture sometimes involves you in your everyday life to the point where you cannot give your children as much attention or help that they need, because you yourself are trying to identify with acclimating to the Israeli environment. Now we have young people. Many come from, well, without being specific and saying where from, I'll just say Beit Shemesh. How's that? Very simple. There are many that come from Beit Shemesh who are not exposed to Hebrew or Israeli culture. And when they reach the age of 17 and they're preparing for the army, first of all, the Hebrew is at a lower level, and their exposure to the army is at a very low level. So that causes lots of questions. What do I do? How do I do it? Shall I do it? Shall I not do it? And the fight sometimes gets to the point where young people will call me and say, I never wanted to come to Israel. My parents just told me we're moving to Israel. I never thought I'd get to the day where I have to now go to serve in a military environment. And then also going back to the parent is, well, we always thought that by the time my children would be of that age, that we wouldn't need to have a military. I, for one, have a daughter. I have two daughters. one of which served in the army. And I always thought that we'd get to the age by the time she becomes 18 that we won't need an army anymore. And boy, was I wrong.
Yeah.
And my daughter became a sharpshooter in combat intelligence, and then became a medic, and then in charge of all the medics of her unit. So she taught me quite a few things by following her service also. So a typical issue can be anything from I'm drafting in 4 months, I'm coming from Canada, United States, Russia, Spanish speaking countries. How do I do it? How do I go to the army? Is there a process? Are there different ways to join the army? And if you're coming from outside of Israel, the answer is yes, yes, and yes. You can join the army by joining different programs. There's one that's called Machal, which is people coming from outside of Israel on their foreign passports, and they serve for 18 months. They do not make Aliyah, and then they either leave, go back to their countries, or make Aliyah after they finish their service. There's another one called Garin Sabar. Garin Sabar is part of the Scouts of Israel, and they come for the duration of their service in a group, and usually that group is placed on a kibbutz somewhere in the periphery of Israel, or as of late, there is now a group in Ra'anana that live at the absorption center there. So it's a very, very dynamic circumstance because they work together, they're raised together, so to speak, and then they serve in their own units, but still have responsibility to their group. And then there are those that come by themselves, make Aliyah by themselves, go through the process of making Aliyah, and then they apply to go to the army. And that by itself is anywhere from a 6-month to a year process before you're even drafted. Okay, so now I'm going to move ahead quickly. For those that come to Israel without very high knowledge of Hebrew, they are required to do a ulpan, a military ulpan on a base in the north. It's a 3-month program, of which, yes, they do learn some Hebrew, but as we all know, you cannot become fluent in a language in 3 months. So the fear is if your Hebrew does not reach a certain limit or a certain height, then there's a very good chance that your job in the army will be very minimal, meaning you may end up working in a kitchen. You may end up just doing guard duty outside the base or becoming a driver. And of those that want to serve in combat units, their physical and mental ability has to be at a certain
Not my
level.
session now. I'm watching a seminar and I have my camera off.
Could everybody mute themselves,
I'm
please?
gonna, the closet's perfect.
Okay, so I'll just continue. I'll take a break here and say, I know that, listen, what I'm talking about has taken me 20 years to put together. So when I say, if you have a question, please ask, because there's more unknown than there is known. So I'll take a break here and ask you if there's anything specifically that you'd like to know that I can help you with.
I want to, yeah, I really, I'm having a trouble with this being a cook thing. I heard it in the other seminar that we did also, that you spoke in a seminar a couple of months ago about a young woman, and the whole idea of being a cook, somebody has to do the cooking. I mean, the whole idea of one job being more important than another job has to do with expectations of the person serving rather than the job itself, from my point of view, as an Israeli woman who raised 3 kids here. The idea of it being less than, I have a big trouble with that. I have a big problem with that. I just wanted to
You're,
put that 2 cents in
you're
because
100% correct in what you're saying, but let's be realistic. Very few people come to a foreign land to join an army to work in a kitchen. I'm not taking the importance of the job away because, as I often say to them also, show me one army that does not eat. And that puts an end to that conversation.
Mm.
So every position is significant. But until you join the army, a lot of these kids come with these ideals of being the next Rambo. And as I tell them, Rambo doesn't live in Israel. And as Susan and I have learned over the years we're working together, and I, for the past 20 years, every job is significant. The important is doing your job to the best of your ability, not having the job that you're going to get the most rewards from.
Um,
Yeah,
Mike's,
I
Mike's,
wanted to jump in and just say that one of the things you may be touching on is possibly that being a cook in the Army doesn't necessarily prepare you for the ultimate career you would like to have, whereas other jobs in the Army might do more of that. I'm not, if you want to be a computer programmer, but you don't have the Hebrew skills, I'm wondering if not to detract from anything that Hannah said. I agree with what she said completely, but um but I'm wondering if there's that feeling of I'm not doing this job that's going to further me in what I ultimately want to do. I wonder if there's a piece of that.
um, these questions are really worthwhile to ask Mike. But Mike, I think what we should do is just to kind of answer Gail's question, which is a very easy question to answer. And then we'll direct everybody that we're going to do another Lone Soldier meeting in January, okay? On a similar format to what we did last month, was where we had a lone soldier present. So you were able to actually understand the world of a struggling lone soldier. And not all lone soldiers are struggling. We must add that. There's some very successful lone soldiers that have gone on to have unbelievable careers in all sorts of different areas of Israeli society. Mike tends to deal with those, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike tends to deal with those that have the problems, the ones that can't settle down, the ones that are struggling with the unit that they've been put into, the ones that have come from a different country with expectations that aren't reality, the ones that come with mental health problems that are lied about on their application form. So these are the kind of challenges that Mike deals with on a day-to-day basis. So Mike, answer Gail's question, and then we'll move on to a different topic, if that's okay with you. And then we've got to set a date anyway for a lone soldier meeting, which needs to be dealt with. So you and I'll talk about that separately.
Okay, Gail, can you ask your question again so I can
It
answer?
wasn't really a question, it was just more of a comment about, somebody whose Hebrew level is lower being placed in, a more, I don't know, hands-on. I don't know how you even want to say it. Which was I wanted to affirm what Hannah was saying about every job in the Army is really important. And yet, there are different levels in the Army of like who gets the most kavod, like the paratroopers, or the units that we hear of, like the combat engineers and whatever, and people struggling with that level. Is it like a status issue? Is it a, maybe you can speak to, are there status issues amongst lone soldiers that come in with less Hebrew, that are sort of less, you know, they don't regard what they do as is as important, or what is someone, say, struggling with?
Well,
Because
I
maybe I
think
make
that
an assumption.
the easy, short way that I can answer your question, but it's going to be a biased answer, is that depending upon what country these young people come from, also builds some of the expectations they come with. So typically, for example, being originally from the United States, I can talk about the United States very easily. A lot of the kids that are coming from the United States who are exposed to the great war movies that are available on every TV, they think that that's what the Army is. And very often I'll have a young man who will say to me, "Oh, and I want to go to be in the top combat unit." And then I say, "You know what? That's really great. I'm very, very proud of your ideal." And then I ask them a question in Hebrew. And their answer to me is, "Dude, dude, I don't understand what you're saying." And that's when I say, "You know what? I'm going to teach you one of the biggest secrets about the Israeli army. That if I tell you, you have to promise me you don't tell anybody else." And right away they're like, "Oh, tell me, tell me, tell me." And I say, "Okay, in the Israeli army, we speak Hebrew." And I said, "You want to talk about becoming this great fighter? First, learn how to walk. Okay, you have to speak Hebrew because your commander's not going to look at you and say, 'You know what? I'm going to think you should go home and sew your suit.'" We speak Hebrew in the Israeli army. And that is one of the biggest frustrations and difficulties we have with the young people, because many of them come with virtually no Hebrew. And they go to the army the first 3 months to a ulpan, and they expect to be speaking Hebrew at the end of 3 months. And it does not happen. It does not happen. And that's the first big awakening in these young people.
So that's kind of some of the challenges that Mike deals with on a day-to-day basis, which when you're listening to what Mike just said about a cook, he wasn't belittling a cook. The people that are joining the army are belittling that position. And actually, it's a very important position. Like we know, every job in the army, it's like a recipe, isn't it? You know, you need everybody to make it successful. So no matter what job you get, that job needs doing. And the problem with a lot of the people that come from Chutz La'aretz, from on the Lone Soldier program, have these wonderful expectations that they're going to be in combat and fighting. And unfortunately, they get a reality check, and possibly the first reality check they've ever had in their lives. So I'm going to stop Mike there, because this is actually one of the most popular areas of our program for people. Everyone's interested in the Lone Soldier program, and Mike is a wealth of knowledge. And we will be having another Lone Soldier session in the new year with a Lone Soldier as well. What I'd like to do now is just very quickly talk about the last two areas of Tikva, which are entwined. And you've got everybody here. We've got a blend of support line workers, we've got a blend of chaplaincy, we've got a blend of therapy as well. So it's wonderful that people are here. So the support line, as you know, was set up in response to October the 7th. I had my instructions to get it set up within 3 days. Unfortunately, I didn't achieve that target, but it was 3 weeks from the conception to actually getting the support line up and running. It was very, very tough in the beginning. It was a nightmare to get it set up. a lot of hard work. Suzanne was there from the beginning. Mike was definitely there from the beginning because he's my neighbour and he offered his services. And I don't know whether I know he said to me the other day, says I've done over 250 interviews for people for the support line for therapy so far, which is an inordinate amount of interviews that he's been doing, including working full-time and living half a year outside of Israel. So that service is there. Mainly in English, as you're all aware. We do offer callbacks in French, Russian, and Spanish, but those don't happen very frequently. It is mainly Anglos that call us. We get all sorts of calls to deal with all sorts of situations. We have everything from people just being lonely and feeling very isolated and fearful, to people calling us from outside of Israel who have shown and expressed intent to kill themselves, which can be proving very challenging. We have callers, actually I can suggest that we've had callers from various countries around the world. And now that we're members of Befriend Us Worldwide, which is something that I really want to make a whole big spiel about, and I haven't done it yet, but we've been waiting for the right moment. That means that now our number is international on their website. They have 44 branches worldwide, 95 centres worldwide. And last year, between us, we handled 1.22 million calls, mainly to do with suicide. So mainly to do with suicide prevention, but it's a worldwide organisation. And I will do an introduction to that, to the whole team, hopefully in the not too distant future, because I think everybody needs to know that we are carrying that flag, which for Israel to have been acknowledged as a branch amongst its neighbours from the Lebanon and these countries, because it's a non-political organisation, is truly amazing. And we have taken calls through that, that people have rang the support line and they said, I've got your number from Befriend Us Worldwide or wherever it might have been. So that gives us exposure throughout the world as well. The support line is there as an emotional support. It's not there as a therapeutic source. However, if people have expressed a desire to come into therapy, then they can easily be referred to me through the support line by WhatsApping me and letting me know that this person is looking for therapy, and then we'll take it from there. The therapy side has been going for, well, Karen, you've been with us, Vicky, you've been with us forever. I think you've been with us since before I came in, haven't you? On the therapy side, when it was really at its very, very conception. We can't hear you, Vicky. You need to unmute, please.
Talking to me.
I'm
talking to me, Susan.
you. Yes, Karen. Sorry, Vicky's down there as well. I'm looking.
Yes. Actually, from the very beginning, before you were there, when Liami was searching for, he would contact me, and I would take on a few clients. Yeah. Yes, from the very start. I've really watched the whole organization blossom, and I'm so proud to be a part of it.
Thank you.
I think it's a phenomenal organization, and I just want to know, I don't have all the numbers that I can distribute to clients.
Okay.
For Israel, of course, but I do have some clients overseas who are Jewish, who might be traveling, who might, or they live in Israel, but they're outside, and I don't know what numbers to give them.
Thank you for raising that issue. And what we'll do is we'll get that popped into the chats, okay? I'll send you out all the numbers, and then you've got them. Vicky's also been with us from the beginning, way before my time, these two ladies. They're stalwarts and they're still involved. So
that we wouldn't keep doing it without you, Susan. There's no way.
Thank you. You're very kind. So they've been with us since the conception, since it was just started up by Liami. And I came into the organisation almost 6 years ago now, and we kind of, between us, helped transform it into something of a more solid basis and hopefully a more streamlined way of working since then. And those, obviously, that's how we can get from the support line, we get new referrals through to the therapy side. The therapy side is very differently run to the support line. It has its own group, and that group now we've just set up a peer support group for that group, which is self-induced, so people can go into this peer support group and actually talk about a situation, and hopefully other people will come in and support them. And there is also monthly supervision available as well, which is offered by one of our outside team. And there is also somebody who offers 2 hours supervision as well on a monthly basis. You just have to make an appointment with her, and she's there to do that as well. So the therapy alongside the support line, alongside chaplaincy, you can see how those 3 services that we do have so much to offer are all in. I think this is very unique, and I'm extremely, extremely thankful to everybody within the volunteer side of it. And if I was to add up now, I think across the board, we're up to about 250, nearly 300 volunteers involved in TIC for Mental Health programme, which all this comes under, right? This all comes under one programme. Exciting things ahead. We are going to, and I've made the first steps, branch out into our own Facebook group, because I feel that we need to be separated out from Keep All In. I think all our posts don't go anywhere. They get lost because they're swamped by all the other stuff that's going on, which is very valuable in Keep All In, but it doesn't support the mental health programme in the right way. So Liami has given permission for that to come out onto its own. That's something that I'm working on as we speak. We are going to be setting up a quarterly, please God, it ever gets off the ground, but a quarterly newsletter, which Suzanne's helping with. That's going to be something that we're going to be all based on mental health, okay? And that's going to be distributed to hopefully what I would call shareholders. In other words, we will email it out and people eventually will start paying on a monthly basis to receive that. So we're funding it, we're bringing in money to us. It will make people aware of the services that we're doing, spotlighting different techniques of therapy. There's so many options. And if any of you ever want to be writing or coming in with some ideas for the newsletter, just let me or Suzanne know, and we'd be very, very happy to take input on that. We are hopefully involved in a survey, which is hopefully will be funded by somebody in the States, which is something that Suzanne's working on again at the moment alongside me. We're doing that at the moment. So the Lone Soldier programme is a constantly growing programme that might be involved in a little bit of a change very shortly on, not that affects Mike, but it affects maybe some people coming in with a little bit of funding, which means that we'll be able to pay for a short time on a pilot scheme some of the therapists that are going to be involved in that project as well, like we did a few years ago. So there's lots of irons in the fire. The organisation has it's definitely growing, it's definitely evolving. My intention is to make this a premier mental health programme for Israel, for Anglo speakers of Israel. Even though we're an limb organisation and at one time we could offer 14 different languages, and we probably can still today, the truth was we were very rarely asked for those languages. It's mainly English, occasionally French, occasionally Russian, and occasionally Spanish. And so now I think we just have to look upon the fact that, you know, it's mainly an Anglo-speaking organisation, which I'm very proud of anyway. And it's going to continue growing from strength to strength. So we have new innovations, and anybody who has any ideas or wants to input anything, any suggestions, just let me know and send it to me. We're open to this. It's at the end of the day, it's our organisation. You are all part of the organisation. And, you know, I keep saying this, but every day, when we get, even if we get one phone call on the support line, right? Even if it's one phone call, and let's say it's a 14 or 15-year-old child that we don't normally get involved with in Keep All In. As you know, we only work with people from the age of 18 because that's the drafting age. So, but we do have a few regular callers who are children. And I can remember very clearly where I was sat the first night I got that call. It was Motsi Sukkot, not last year, but the year before. And there was a 13-year-old child on the phone who wanted to die. She had every intention of killing herself. I sat with her for an hour and a half, and eventually I managed to get the phone number from her father. I walked her home, obviously not physically, but I walked her home. And when she got home, I asked her to put her father on the phone. And I told her father exactly what she'd expressed to me, because obviously we don't have any confidentiality with children under the age of 18. And I sat after that crying for an hour, because that told me the reason why I did this, the reason why we do this. It's when you get a call like that, whether it be a child, whether it be an adult, and we have done our best to try to save that person's life. It's one call a day, that's all that matters. And that's why it's there. That's why the support line is there. And that's why people cover the support line 24 hours, 7 days a week. The support line has never, ever, ever not had a shift taken. It's always had a shift covered. So thank you to everybody, whether you're a therapist, whether you're a chaplain, whether you're the mental health team, you're all part of Tikva. We're all one family. And I just can't thank you all enough. I would like to actually do this. I've had this mad idea again, but I'd actually like to do this and take this live to invite different organisations into it so they can understand the work that we do, because I don't think many people, I mean, whilst we work with Amudim, we work with Wings, we work with all sorts of different organisations, there's many organisations out there that don't know what we do. So I'm hoping that in the not too distant future, this idea, this concept will go out to the wider community of therapy. And if you feel that's something that could benefit different organisations or different therapists understanding what we're doing, let me know. You know, if you feel it will be of benefit. For me, I think it will be. To get our name out there in a different sort of a way. I think we have to be forward thinking and change the way that we do things to go along with the times. So thank you. Is there any questions you would like to ask anybody, like Hannah, Leslie, Mike, Gail, Suzanne, who's on our administration team, Mike, who is in our interviewing team, and volunteers here from England. We have Batsheva and Mel. So Batsheva and Mel, just say hi.
Hello.
Hi, Mel.
Hi, Mel.
Tell everybody where you're from.
Oh, I'm calling from Leeds, which
That's
is
where I come from.
5 minutes from where I met Susan.
Yeah. Yeah. And Mel's on our support line, training to be a therapist, aren't you, Mel?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Batsheva, where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm also from Leeds.
Yeah, there you go. Batsheva is a part of the the word's gone from my head. Koilel. Her and her husband are part of the Leeds Koilel. So they're living in Leeds as part of that, and she's on our team as well from Leeds. There's Batsheva there. There you are. Yossi, where are you from? Remind me.
I'm from London, England.
There you go. Thank you. And Yossi's on our therapy team. Who else is here that's not said introduced themselves? Hi.
Anna, Jackie.
Everybody just unmute yourself and introduce yourself very, very quickly. Okay, if you haven't already done so.
Shalom, I'm Hannah. I'm in Modi'in. I'm in Israel 50 years. I've been part of the line for 2 years.
Yeah, Hannah does 3 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours sometimes every single morning. She does the early shift, and she's also one of our therapists, and she also helps do intakes for me, which is really vital. She's really a stalwart. Thank you, Hannah. Okay, who else is next?
Hey everyone, Savital. I'm in Nahariya, and I work the volunteer of the helpline and the therapy side as well.
And she's in our admin team. Renzo, that's Aaron?
I am Aaron Renzoni, originally from Muncie, New York, now living in Yerushalayim. I'm a part of the emotional support team.
There you go. Right, anybody else who's not introduced yourselves?
I haven't. Yeah.
Everybody's introduced themselves?
I haven't.
Okay.
I'm Michael. I'm Michael. I live in Netanya, next to Susan, and I have done most of the interviews, and I also used to do intakes. I don't know why that hasn't been, but I'm here 8 to 9 months a year, not 6, by the way.
I forgot that you did intakes. You might regret reminding me of that one. We have been.
I work on the hotline. I work on the emotional support line. I do the interviews for therapists and for the emotional support line. And I've even interviewed for some chaplains, but also used to do intakes. But just to let you know.
And I've noted and remembered. I'll be sending you some names. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
I was going to say, I'm Suzanne, and I'm in Washington, D.C., originally from New York, and also in Chicago and New York. And I'm helping our organization to set up our NGO here in the United States. So we do a lot of marketing. I'm on admin since the get-go, clinician, and we'll work with soldiers and getting the word out. I do interviews for our volunteers.
So you can see that we're a multinational organization. How wonderful is that? We do, and there are people, I must tell you, we have 4 or 5 volunteers from Australia as well. But at the moment, their time is being taken up by working for Jewish Care. A lot of them have gone to volunteer for Jewish Care, so they're on their support line in Australia at the moment. And our hearts do go out to the Australian contingents on that horrendous terrorist attack. So yeah.
And Jackie, I'm sorry, did Jackie bring her?
Oh, Jackie.
Jackie's on the volunteer liaison committee, which is a huge part of the helpline.
We didn't talk about that.
Okay, so I'm Jackie. I live in Ra'anana in Israel, and I'm on both the Tikva helpline and on the counseling side. Yeah.
And actually, thank you, Jackie. Leslie just touched upon something actually that we hadn't talked about, which on the support line, because there is no, there's no on the therapy side, a lot of us have our own supervision. But in the support line, there's no supervision. There is if people need it. So it was suggested that we did a volunteer liaison committee, of which it was actually, I think, conceived by Suzanne in the beginning, whereby we have a team of liaison officers who are assigned different numbers of people on the support line. So every month, a support line worker will actually receive a call from their liaison officer just to check in with them, how they're doing, do they need any support, is there anything we can do for them, and all that kind of thing. So that's something that is very supportive. And I know that a lot of our support line workers are very much into the liaison committee, and it does wonderful, wonderful work. So again, that's something else under the kind of under the ground kind of work that goes on to keep the support line going. So thank you. Anybody got any quick questions or anything they'd like to add?
I'd like just to add that if you would like to speak to any of our spiritual care providers, we're here for you too. Even if you're just having a bad day, or if you have a baby that was just born, whatever it is, happy or sad, we are free. And I myself am up in the middle of the night, so sometimes I'm talking to Hannah, Kana, whoever is in Israel, and I answer in WhatsApp.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. So thank you everybody for coming. Thank you for your time. Our next training session is going to be in January, which is going to be a very interesting subject. Let me just get my folder because my brain, I'm afraid, has really frozen. But you will be getting a flyer about that one the next day or so, which is going to be, I think it's January the 7th. Mel, it's January the 7th, isn't it?
Yeah, I think.
No, it's Sunday. It's not. It's January the 4th. Sunday, January the 4th.
Yeah.
Mel's going to be talking to us. Mel, do you want to give over the title on what you're going to be talking about?
Yeah, so it's a talk on gender diversity. Basically, I guess so people have less of a deer in headlight kind of feeling when they're dealing with trans or gender diverse clients or people calling the helpline. Because I'm pretty sure we will get at some point, and I just want everyone to kind of have some idea of what they're talking about, what they're doing, and be as supportive as we can to as many people as we can.
Okay, so that will be January the 4th and I'll send out the flyer tomorrow for that one. Okay, which should be really, really interesting. All right, everybody, Hanukkah is over, but please let's just remember that last night I made a post on Facebook. I don't know, we could never do a survey, but I suppose if we were to talk about how many Jews there are in the world, and let's assume how many of those Jews, let's say there's 15 million Jews and every Jewish person lit 8 candles last night. I'd love to work out how many candles were lit through the world, shining our existence and the strength and the strength that we show through the adverse times that we are facing. And just going back to anti-Semitism, that is going to be focusing in the support line a little bit more next year, in the Gregorian next year. So watch this space as well. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Lots of love.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Susan.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you. Thank you.
Night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's wonderful.
Thank you, everybody.
Night. God bless.
Thank you.